How's everybody doing? Aaron, Canadian Looney. Hope everybody had a great summer. It was a warm, dry one here in Nova Scotia. You probably heard we were banned from the woods. Preposterous. Totalitarianism is a real thing and it's being implemented all across the country. However, September 15th, Parliament will be back in session. Pierre Poilievre back in the House, smashed through that election with ease. Mark Carney is a disaster. He's showing his real stripes now. He lied to everybody during the entire campaign, and it will come back to haunt him. I think a lot of Canadians are paying attention. It's a lot of people, again, I swim in a circle where there's a lot of confirmation bias, like the people that tend to watch my stuff or stuff like mine are people generally that I agree with. So there's a lot of that. So I find that's a factor in realizing how many people are paying attention. A lot of people just turn the other cheek or look away when they see a disaster. And this is like a fact of just human nature. People would rather think they were people would rather not know they were fooled than find out they were fooled and try to change it. It's just a issue that is just a part of human nature. Anyhow, going to kick off the show. I'd like to say thank you to Kirk and Rhonda for dropping by. I again just had a tough time making shows this summer. Nelson Cade, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Let's get into some videos. We've got some fun stuff coming up. There's not much of the other side in here. It's just what Carney's going to be facing when he drags his coward ass back to the House of Commons. Let's get into this. Let's kick it off. In Canadian federal politics, the Canucks are represented by two separate yet unequal groups. The globalists who sold out and the opposition trying to salvage a country. These are their stories.
You really believe?
All right, we're kicking this off with Brian Mulroney. This is just how it was. Like, history repeats itself, right? Let's listen to this.
That if the Liberal government is returned, there is going to be any real change in the attitudes of those who have been stalking power here in Ottawa for 20 or 25 years. Remember that the Liberals made four promises, four solemn undertakings to Canadians in 1980. They came before you and they said four things and then put them in the throne speech. First, 18 cents a gallon is too much. And it went up to over $1.50. Secondly, we're going to reduce unemployment. When they made that promise, there were 800,000 Canadians unemployed. There are now 1.5 million. Then they said we're going to reduce the growth in government expenditures. It's gone up from 60 billion to 100 billion. And then they said, we give you a formal undertaking that we are going to reduce the deficit in an orderly manner. The deficit's gone from 10 billion to $36 billion a year. It took Canada 100 years, from 1867 to 1967, to accumulate a net debt of $18 billion. And from 1968, with Mr. Turner there and his colleagues, from 1968 to today, 15 years, our net debt has gone from 18 billion to $180 billion. That's not the fault of the Americans, as Mr. Turner suggests. That's not the fault of our friends and allies. That's the fault of the people who have been running this country, who have been initiating deficit financing, who have been spending more than they could take in, who have been crippling the private sector. There's a new day coming for Canada, and that day brings new hope and new prosperity. The Conservatives, we have never contended we're perfect. We need your help. We need your advice and your counsel, and we will always honor your trust. Our commitment is to Canada, and our commitment is to you.
New crime stats are out, and the results are not good. Violent crime in Canada hasn't just gone up, it's exploded. And the cause is clear. Soft on crime laws that make it easier for repeat violent offenders to get bail and get released back on our streets. Across Canada, the numbers are staggering. Violent crime up nearly 55%. Homicides up almost 30%. Sexual assaults 76%. And firearm crimes up 131%, and extortion, shockingly, up 330%. These aren't just national statistics. Every province is feeling the impact. In Ontario, violent crime is up 61%, homicides up 62%, auto theft up 127%. In Quebec, sexual assaults are up 136%. Gun crime is up 185%. In Manitoba, homicides have doubled. Extortion is up over 1,200%. In Alberta, extortion is up 361%, and gun crime has doubled. In British Columbia, sexual assaults up 95%, and extortion up nearly 500%. In Saskatchewan, gun crime up 201%, extortion is up over 650%. In New Brunswick, violent crime up 68%, and extortion up over 500%. In Nova Scotia, gun crime is up 197%, and in Newfoundland, extortion up nearly 600%. This crime wave didn't happen by accident. Bills C5 and C75 have weakened our justice system by removing mandatory minimum sentences for serious violent crimes and forcing judges to release offenders at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. The result? A revolving door bail system where dangerous repeat offenders, even those charged with gun crimes, sexual assault, extortion, and violent attacks, are back on the streets within hours or days. Canadians across the country agree this has to stop. Premiers have formally urged the federal government to strengthen bail for violent and repeat offenders. Ontario has called for immediate action on bail reform. The Attorney General in British Columbia demanded tougher bail rules. Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan have all written directly to Ottawa demanding change. Even the territories have joined the calls. Police leaders nationwide, from the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police to the Calgary Police Service, are backing stronger bail, with the Toronto Police Association urging Ottawa to act now. And frontline associations like the Canadian Police Association calling for changes to stop repeat violent offenders from cycling through our bail courts. Mark Carney has now been Prime Minister for over 100 days, and with violent crime surging, with every premier and major police organizations in the country demanding bail reform, he has done nothing to end the revolving door. Canadians deserve a justice system that puts public safety first, not one that lets violent repeat offenders keep harming our communities. That's why my petition calls on the federal government to amend the criminal code to make bail more restrictive for repeat violent offenders, especially those charged with firearm offenses, intimate partner violence, and other serious violent crimes, to repeal Bill C5 to restore mandatory minimum sentences for serious violent offenses, to repeal the so-called principle of restraint from Bill C75 that forces judges to release offenders at the earliest possible opportunity under the least onerous conditions, to support law enforcement and victim rights advocates by ensuring real consequences for violent repeat offenders, and to work with provinces, territories, and Indigenous communities to ensure consistent, effective bail policies that protect all Canadians, no matter where they live. Victims and law-abiding Canadians deserve so much better. The revolving door justice system has to end. Please sign the petition today and join hundreds of thousands of Canadians calling for real bail reform. Visit conservative.ca/CPC/bail reform and tell this government that enough is enough.
All right, gang. Just to quickly explain, it's been a while since I've done a live show, and we're trying to set up our interface. So there might be a couple of little mistakes, but they should be funny to watch. The rest should be pretty smooth. Now we're going to check out Michael Cooper, one of my favorite MPs to watch and listen to, who's ready to flip. I know a lot of these MPs are ready to snap. Anyway, let's check out Michael Cooper.
Mark Carney is not being honest with Canadians about his massive deficit spending plans. Using carefully crafted language, Carney is trying to create the illusion that he has a plan to balance the budget. Take the recent speech from the throne, where Carney's government committed to balancing the operating budget within 3 years.
The government will balance its operating budget over the next 3 years by cutting waste, capping the public service.
Carney plans to hide this massive new deficit spending by making the federal budget more complicated and less transparent. He plans to create two budgets, an operating budget and a capital budget. The operating budget would cover day-to-day government spending, while the capital budget would cover so-called investment. Here's the problem. Carney's definition of capital spending is completely vague. It's not limited to actual capital spending, things like investing in infrastructure. It also includes so-called incentives that support the formation of private sector capital or which meaningfully raise private sector productivity. In other words, Carney's definition of capital spending includes government handouts, corporate welfare, no doubt to benefit liberal insiders. This elastic definition of capital spending allows Carney to balance the operating budget, not by balancing anything, but by shifting spending to the capital budget. Carney has no real plan to reduce spending, no real plan to balance the budget. Carney's real plan is to rack up more debt than Justin Trudeau while making it more difficult to track government spending. Not surprisingly, this important detail was completely left out of the speech from the throne. Let's call this for what it is. It's called budget trickery. It's called cooking the books.
What do we have next?
Last night we learned that the Prime Minister has an entire department of bureaucrats trying to manage his conflicts of interest, but they can't even tell us if the Prime Minister has set up a conflict of interest screen. And so that means that the former chairman of a multi-billion-dollar investment firm is sitting at the cabinet table and could be taking decisions that personally improve his financial standing. He's been Prime Minister for 100 days, but he's still jumping through these ethical loopholes. So why won't the Prime Minister stop hiding the truth from Canadians and come clean? What are your conflicts of interest?
I would just remind the member to direct his question through the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike member opposite, I'm proud of having experience in the private sector. I'm proud of having experience helping to build this country. I'm proud of having filed all my requirements in advance before required, including a screen for the conflict of interest. I'll wait on these.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, unlike the Right Honourable Prime Minister, I'm proud to have served our country in the Canadian Armed Forces in uniform. This Prime Minister seems to do whatever he thinks he can get away with. He voted for the Liberals' ban on gas-powered cars, while Brookfield is heavily invested in the EV supply chain. We know that he used offshore tax havens in the Caribbean to avoid paying Canadian taxes. His own department won't even say if he set up conflicts of interest screens. So instead of maligning people who serve the country in uniform, why doesn't he stand up and come clean about his conflicts of interest?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, sorry.
If he gets screwed up that much just by not just by Mike Barrett, but by Mike Barrett, he's not going to stand a chance. Poilievre is going to run him over like a Mack truck. It's embarrassing, this clown. Honestly, I've been following him all summer, and I'm fed up before it even gets going. I don't know if you guys have been following the news or not, This guy is a loser.
Battlefield promotion there. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud as Prime Minister to have made the biggest investment in our military in decades. I am proud to be reversing the decades of cuts of members opposite.
Well, it's been about 6 months since the election when Mark Carney didn't want to answer any questions about his conflicts of interest, but Canadians now know that he has conflicts of interest with over 100 companies. According to a new disclosure they didn't have to make until now, Prime Minister Carney cannot be involved in, quote, any official matters or decision-making processes with over 100 companies like Brookfield Asset Management, Brookfield Corporation, and Stripe. This so-called ethics screen is supposed to keep the Prime Minister from making decisions that benefit his former companies. But you know what, Canadians? Don't forget his actual record. While he served on the Liberal Party board, Mark Carney pushed heat pumps on Canadians, a product that Brookfield has a heavy stake in through a heat pump company that stood to gain from government subsidies that Prime Minister Trudeau announced when Mark Carney was his economic advisor. Even now, Prime Minister Carney pushes the EV mandate and the prohibition on gas and diesel-powered engines on Canadians, maybe because, and I encourage you to check it out for yourself, don't just take my word for it, Brookfield is heavily invested in electric vehicle supply chains. In fact, Prime Minister Carney's flagship bill, Bill C-5, originally tried to exempt him and his cabinet ministers from 15 critical federal laws, like, imagine this, the Conflict of Interest Act, the Lobbying Act, and the Criminal Code. I wonder why. But Conservatives fixed that obvious problem. Because a law that tries to exempt politicians from the Conflict of Interest Act, the Lobbying Act, and the Criminal Code, I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? Now, just weeks ago, in committee on C-5, I presented an amendment at almost midnight in the Transportation Committee to make sure that the Conflict of Interest Act would be applied in Bill C-5 to prevent insider corruption and political decision-making. My amendment did pass, even though the Liberals voted against it. Canadians deserve transparency and accountability, not backroom deals and conflicts of interest from a Liberal Prime Minister tied to more than 100 companies at the very highest levels. Only Conservatives will clean up Ottawa, stop insider corruption, and restore ethics in government for you. Because you know what? Canadians deserve nothing less.
All right, gang, I don't mean to interrupt again, but I guess we are doing a live show. We should do a little bit of talking. Remember to hit the like and subscribe. We're going to get real busy here in September. I've been busy. I've been making a lot of videos the last couple of weeks. We've been getting our stuff back in gear. Anyhow, yeah, hit the like, subscribe. Lots of stuff coming up. It's going to be a very interesting fall. I think it's boiling over. If you pay any attention to what's been going on around the world, I've got a video that I might show on here later. It's so interesting, but it's dark. Might be a little bit too dark for YouTube. It wasn't, I didn't find it on YouTube. Anyhow, we'll continue with this.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
So awkward. I don't know why the finance minister takes all of this abuse from the prime minister. She told Canadians that the deficit wouldn't go past $40 billion. That was her own self-imposed guardrail. Now she says everything's fine as her political career collapses, and so does her credibility, all because of this prime minister. 5 senior Liberal veterans and 3 political staffers confirmed to the Globe that the tensions have risen between her office and the PMO over spending. These are the same people who last summer said that she couldn't communicate. We know what the Prime Minister thinks of her, but why does she still have confidence in him?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are united. And on this side of the House, we recognize what a privilege it is every single day to work hard for Canada and Canadians and to defend the national interest. That is what we are focused on every single day. And I would urge the MPs opposite to remember, this is a challenging time in Canada and the world. It is not a time for cheap partisan gains.
Look, I'm just going to read a quote back to you that brought you to this committee. Our government has made the decision to stop investing in road infrastructure. You said you didn't say it. You clearly said it. You said you didn't mean it. So what is it that you meant by our government has made the decision to stop investing in new roads if you didn't mean that our government has made the decision to stop investing in new roads?
Merci pour la question. En fait, ce que j'ai déjà dit à plus.
Thank you for the question. In fact, what I've said several times, and I will repeat it here for the committee, I should have specified that these comments were made in the context of the third link in Quebec City, a project that the government of Quebec sometimes promoted, sometimes didn't. And this link would connect Quebec City and the South Shore of Quebec.
The bus on that. So I'll read the second thing that you said. The analysis that we have done is that the network is perfectly adequate to respond to the needs we have. Now, I don't have to tell you that it takes 29 minutes to drive 10 kilometers in Toronto. It takes 19 minutes in your city of Montreal. And of course, not everybody lives next to a subway. So what's the analysis that we have done? Can you state a specific analysis?
Comme je l'ai dit, et je vais le répéter, je faisais spécifiquement référence.
As I was saying, I was specifically referring to the third link.
Did you share that with the Minister of Transport? Because he earlier threw you under the bus and said that he hadn't seen an analysis. So is that something that you're willing to share with him or maybe table at this committee?
Je pense que ça s'est perdu un peu dans la...
I think things got lost in the translation. I was saying that there are analyses that have shown, countless analyses in Quebec, that the third link is not needed, the link between the Quebec City South Shore and Quebec City.
We have done, you're talking about an analysis that was done. Which analysis?
Ouais, ça me ferait plaisir de communiquer au...
I'd be delighted to communicate the studies. The studies have been made public.
At all?
C'est, comme je l'ai dit, ce sont...
As I've said, these are public studies concerning the fact that a third link is not necessary in the Quebec City area.
Roads policy and the analysis that you didn't do, that's why you're here. So in Toronto, again, I'm going to state this, it takes 29 minutes. It's the third slowest in the world in terms of traffic patterns. In Vancouver, it's 23 minutes to get to drive 10 kilometers. In Winnipeg, 19 minutes. And in Montreal, I have a whole list. Cities around the country, big and small, and all of them have one thing in common. There's traffic congestions, and we need roads. And those are just for folks that live in the cities. And I suspect that you know that you can't use a bike lane in places like in most rural ridings, and you certainly can't walk to work or walk to drive your kids to hockey, in frankly, any case. What do you mean when the network is perfectly adequate to respond to the needs we have? It's blatantly untrue. This is not even an analysis. It's just facts.
Comme je l'ai dit,
As I said, I was specifically referring to the third link project that links Quebec City and its South Shore. I wasn't speaking of Toronto, Montreal, or Winnipeg, or Vancouver. As I said in my introduction, I listed the $1.6 billion invested to maintain, expand the road network for various segments of the highway for which our Parks Canada has responsibility. These are major sums to maintain and improve the road network in various parts of the country.
We're not getting anywhere because you're not taking responsibility for the policy that you've announced on behalf of the Government of Canada, and it's very clear that maybe you don't have a role in making it. I'm going to go to...
Je prends la responsabilité d'avoir...
I have the responsibility in that I was not specific enough in the statement that I made. I've admitted that several times, and I've made it here today in front of the committee.
Ask you you've clearly walked back your comments, just like you've walked back many of the policies that you've had to put forward, or frankly, the Prime Minister walked them back for you. But on that, most Canadians believe that, most Canadians are against a carbon tax increase, even more so against the April 1st carbon tax increase. And in the case that the Prime Minister doesn't make a carve-out against your own signature policy and your raison d'etre here, is there any case And you do a lot of analysis, you do a lot of polling, so you must be seeing exactly what the public polls are seeing. 70% of Canadians against it, 70% of premiers have now come out against it. Different party leaders, different legislators have all come against your April 1st 23% tax
Point
increase.
of order, Mr.
Is there
Chair.
anything that you would do to change your approach,
Excuse
you
me.
personally?
Sorry, we have a point of order, Ms. Lansman. I've stopped your time. Ms. Kouchakis.
Several of us have pointed out on this, even with earlier witnesses that have been here today. Relevance. We're here to discuss the comments that Minister Guilbeault made several months ago, and he's here before this committee to clarify what he meant. And I don't see the relevance of where my honourable colleague is going with this line of questioning.
Thank you, Ms. Kouchakis. Ms. Lansman, you weren't here for the previous ministers that had appeared.
I watched.
But we did
Minister,
have a lot
the
of questions.
gas.
If we could just stay focused on the
Yes,
reason for
Minister,
which
the gas
here.
tax is levied, and of course, all Canadians pay into a carbon tax at the pumps. That's going to be 23% more. So, if you don't understand how the carbon tax affects road infrastructure, I can't help you. But I have a question for you: is there anything that you would do to walk back? You personally, would you walk back, in any case, the 23% carbon tax increase in April?
Mais d'abord, je tiens à préciser que la
I'd like to specify that the Supreme Court of Canada has stated that it is not a tax because these revenues do not come back to the Canadian government, and 100% of the money goes back to Canadians in some form or another. To speak of the April 1st increase, your leader always mentions it without mentioning that the rebates are also increasing. You'll note that by province, people receive more than they pay.
Minister, you started this committee saying that you didn't say what you meant in your comments. Our government has made the decisions to stop investing in roads. First you said you didn't say it, then you said you didn't mean it, then you said you meant something entirely different. Then you talked about the analysis that we have done for the network to be perfectly adequate, and it turns out there is no analysis, or you did no analysis, or if there is an analysis, that you refuse to share that analysis with anyone. And then you said that the carbon tax is revenue neutral. We know that it's $20 billion in the government coffers, which $18 billion is not remitted, so that's not revenue neutral if you understand the definition of revenue neutral. And then you said that more families get more back in rebates than they do in paying the carbon tax. And we know that the parliamentary budget officer says that that's not true for the majority of families in everywhere where the carbon tax applies. So if you're not going to be truthful on the first four questions in my answer, I'm going to just ask you once. Are there any circumstances in which you will cause you to walk back the April 1st 23% tax hike that you are about to impose on Canadians, which your colleagues have believed has nothing to do with roads or the cost of gas?
Sorry, Ms. Lansman. We'll stop the time there, Mr. Badaway.
Relevance.
It's a point of order for relevance. Okay. If we could just make the link between the roads and the question, I think that would be helpful for the minister and for committee members.
I will make this clear one more time. You put gas in your car to drive on the roads. I'm asking him about the carbon tax that you're about to raise on Canadian families on April 1st. So, Minister, do you have an answer to the question?
Ben, d'abord, je ne partage pas votre caractérisation de mes commentaires. Je n'ai pas.
First of all, I don't share your characterization of my comments. What I said was that I should have been more precise. I take full responsibility for this lack of precision. As for carbon pricing, your party and your leader never speaks of the rebates that people receive from this price. Yes, the rates will go up on April 1st, but so will the rebate. And your party never mentions that if we don't put a price on carbon, our economic partners will do so. Any country that exports to Europe must pay a carbon price if we do not have our own carbon price system. And in the U.S., our largest trading partner, there are plans to put up a border tax for any country that does not have a carbon pricing system. So either we do it ourselves or it is done for us by our economic partners internationally.
I just want to know if you've seen any data that suggests anything other than the 70% of Canadians that we see in public data that are against your April 1st tax hike, or that you've talked to premiers and had a separate conversation with them in any kind of way that would suggest that 70% of them aren't against the April 1st 23% tax hike. Is there anything that you have seen to suggest that any Canadians believe that what you are imposing in less than 2 weeks on gas, on groceries, on home heating, on families, on farmers, on First Nations right across the country is a good idea?
As your party in the 2021 election campaigned to maintain the carbon pricing system, this is the commitment we made, and that's what we're doing.
I'll just say a few words, and then do you want to do questions? Okay. Yeah, well, I would say that
Gang, this is Rachel Dancho. I hadn't noticed her that much in the time. I started really noticing her this summer when I was learning more about things that I was trying to pick up. This woman is sharp as a tack. Melissa Lantzman is real sharp. Michelle Ferreri, who unfortunately isn't in the House anymore. But Dancho is a leader, man.
I think Canadians will be very disappointed with the result from yesterday's announcement. The Liberals made it seem yet again like they're taking real action to keep communities safe, when in fact that is not the case. This is another failed opportunity to address a very serious issue in Canada. We've consistently seen gun violent crime go up in the last 7 years that Justin Trudeau has been Prime Minister. They're spending more money than any other government in history, and yet yesterday's announcement will do nothing to address the rise of gun violence in Canada.
Yeah, Ms. Dancho, in the question period, you're asking the Prime Minister of what further border measures are being implemented to try to stop illegal guns being smuggled into the United States. If you were governor, what measures would you be bringing forward to try to tamp down smuggled guns?
Oh, it's a great question. So when we recently did a guns and gangs study at Public Safety National Security Committee, and we had the CBSA Border Officer Union come forward and really outline how very strapped their resources are, much like police resources who are struggling to keep up with the calls for service of gun violence and the like. Our border agents are also struggling to keep up with demand. So, for example, they don't have enough border agents or enough technology capacity to check rail cars, for example. So millions of rail cars come into Canada every day, direct lines through the United States, right from Mexico, right into Winnipeg, where I represent, actually. And they're so strapped at the border that they can actually check 1/1,000,000th of rail cars that come into Canada. So effectively, they can't check any. So that's an area where drugs and firearms are being smuggled into Canada. I've spoke with police who also confirm this, particularly in Winnipeg, where we have that direct line. So more border agents in particular are needed, but also improved technology to be able to search and scan vehicles that are coming in as well.
Yeah, you have to get to the feedback panel shortly, so anything else you want to add quickly?
Great, so do I, actually, 4:30, yeah. Well, I would just say that, again, I think Canada's Conservatives in particular, but all Canadians really want to see action on gun violence. And as I outlined in question period today, there are real things that can be done to reduce gun violence that I think every party can support and all Canadians can support. And that's, again, more resources for police, guns and gangs units to tackle gun crime in our cities, which is the problem. More border security resources so we can stop the smuggling from coming in. And then also, I think we have to also plan long term. A lot of the gun violence we're seeing is coming from impoverished neighborhoods. So we need to ensure we're targeting them, supporting them with supporting anti-gang and anti-criminal community grassroots organizations that help divert youth from living lives of crime. And we've consistently heard this all throughout our guns and gangs study. Experts agree, and police also agree, and we consistently heard this, that bans will not be effective because criminals who cause the gun violence in Canada don't listen to bans. So again, yesterday's announcement fell flat, and it's misleading to tell Canadians that it will have any impact on reducing gun violence in Canada. Great, thanks very much.
Hi, Andrew Lawton here, your Member of Parliament for Elgin St. Thomas, London South. This has just come out this morning, the latest unemployment numbers from Statistics Canada, and I wish I were coming with better news, but the situation is grim across the province and across the riding. First off, in the London census area, this includes St. Thomas and Southwold and Central Elgin, unemployment has gone up in the last month. It was at 6.4% in April. It's at 6.9% now. This is a trend we're seeing that looks like it's going to continue to worsen, and it seems we may be headed towards a full-blown jobs crisis. TD has estimated that we could lose 100,000 jobs nationwide by the end of this year alone. But I want to drill down into one of the really concerning numbers for our region here and across the province, and that is what's happening in our manufacturing and agricultural sectors. Ontario has lost in the last year more than 25,000 jobs in manufacturing. 25,000. Now, how do we ever become a self-sufficient economic powerhouse of a country if we aren't able to produce anything? If manufacturing jobs just aren't existing anymore, and that's contributing significantly to rising unemployment. We also see thousands and thousands of jobs lost in agriculture. Again, very significant. We need to be less reliant on the U.S. We need to produce more. Now, all of this is part of 10 years of Liberal policy, problems that have been exacerbated by the Mark Carney government. We have the industrial carbon tax making businesses less competitive, making it less affordable to do business here. We've got significant red tape. We've got interprovincial trade barriers that make it difficult for Canadians to trade within the country. All of this is absolutely significant. I'm sounding the alarm now. Conservatives have been saying we should be keeping Parliament in session throughout the summer until we solve this crisis. The Liberals are planning to start their summer vacation on June 20th. I'm going to continue to work for you. I'm going to advocate at the national level, and I'm going to continue to listen to the businesses in our riding that are on the front lines of this and that have significant concerns about what we may be staring down. So I'm going to keep fighting, and I am with you.
Today, the Auditor General released a scathing audit on the top Arrive scam fraudster GC Strat.
Sorry to interrupt Brock, he's the man, but Carney and his Liberals all voted against trying to get our tax dollars back from the Arrive scam. Like, what an audacious thing to do. It's crazy, right? Crazy, crazy, crazy. To vote against liars and cheaters having to return the money that they stole from Canadians. Again, that's on the record. Anyway, I'm going to get back to Larry Brock because he's awesome.
This two-person basement dwelling company feasted on $64 million taxpayer dollars. This was a direct gift from the Liberal government who allowed basic procurement rules to be completely ignored over the last 10 years. Canadians still don't know who did the work, what was done, if they were qualified, if they had security clearances. This is complete government incompetence. The ask is simple. When will taxpayers get their money back?
I note that GC Strategy has been prohibited from government contracts for 7 years, and it's that standard, the minimum. As a member of Canada's new government and a new member of Parliament, we will uphold.
Wipe that grin off your smug face. Oh my God, like, he's frustrating to watch. Parliament hasn't even started yet. It will be funny when he gets raked over the coals. These Conservatives are going to tear him up. It was a bit confusing in the spring after the election without Poilievre in the House. Like, it was. It felt weird to watch, and plus people didn't really know who all the new ministers were, and now you just know he shuffled the deck to make it more incompetent, and now he can blame it on incompetence when it's actually just planning ahead to have excuses. And you can say, like, oh well, the crime rates are so high because Gary doesn't know how to do his job and Anna Sonnengray doesn't know how to do his shit, but it was planned to do that. It's easy to set up Fall Guys. Anyways, Carney, what a loser. That smug grin gets me.
Higher standards, Mr. Speaker.
shockingly, the very same Liberal ministers who had their fingerprints all over the Arise scam are still in cabinet today, namely the Jobs Minister, the U.S. Trade Minister, and his Foreign Affairs Minister. Their lack of ministerial responsibility is both negligent and inexcusable. The fraudulent payment of $64 million isn't just about reckless spending, it's a total waste of taxpayer dollars and a betrayal of Canadians who are living through a cost of living crisis. So I ask the Prime Minister again, when will taxpayers get their money back?
That's a good question. I would like to commend the members opposite, for supporting the Making Life More Affordable Act to get taxpayer dollars back to Canadians. And commit. This government is committed. This new government is committed to making the best use of all taxpayers' dollars.
The Auditor General just slammed these Liberals in her report this morning and said what we've known all along. The Liberals have broken our military. Today's F-35 report criticized the Liberals for misleading cost projections that are 50% higher by over $14 billion, ongoing construction delays for necessary infrastructure, ignoring the severe pilot and mechanic shortage, and implementing weak oversight mechanisms. The ministers who are responsible for this debacle are still sitting in here. Will the Prime Minister hold them accountable for this mess?
I'd like to know if the member opposite holds himself accountable for letting military spending fall below 1% of GDP. I'm a conservative during government. This government has doubled military spending in cash terms. We're meeting our NATO obligations this year, leading from the front.
Liberals have spent over $300 million on a housing program, claiming they would build 4,000 units. In 7 years, they built 309. To put it bluntly, that's not close at all. They've missed the mark by 93%. So the question I have for the Prime Minister is, how can he continue to have the minister responsible for this failure in his cabinet? And how can he promote that failed minister to now be our Minister of Justice?
Great question. We have a great opportunity here to build housing, and when you look at the pathetic performance of Housing Minister Poilievre, who delivered six affordable housing units. 6 in 1 year.
Great point.
And 0 in the city of Vancouver, where I was serving.
Yeah,
0.
That's right.
That's a record that is deplorable. And that's a record that this government will never repeat. We are focused on building big.
End of the Canadian summer. Drop the kids off at school for the...
All right, gang. Quickly, gonna say hello to everybody. Ron Crosswell, Kirk, obviously, great to see you. Joe Bobbycat, what's going on, bro? Lost Art, thank you so much. That's very generous. Welcome, Jonathan Voorhuis. Good to see you. Dan, what's shaking, baby? How you doing? Don't want to miss anybody when there's Alexander. How are things in California, my man? I don't like missing people. Rick RT, what's shaking? Perry Dorsey, how you doing? Keep your stick on the ice. What's going on? And now this is going where we're going to get into Mary Atwell. Good to see you. Ann Garvey, sorry for your loss. That's a tough one. Yeah, this is a speech by Pierre Poilievre this is today's. It's pretty funny, actually.
First day the other day, and as exciting as that was, the summer's coming to an end. And what kind of summer has it been for Mark Carney? It has been the Seinfeld summer. A big show about nothing. Let's review the show. He made a big show about austerity in government spending after he advised Justin Trudeau to double the national debt and cause the worst inflation in 40 years. Now Mr. Carney says he's going to have a big show about austerity. Well, what's the reality? Well, government spending is up 8% in the 5 months Mark Carney has been in office. 33% more bureaucrats make $100,000 or more. 37% more spending on consultants, an eye-watering $26 billion paying for high-price consultants, almost a third more than Trudeau was spending. And though Mr. Carney has not figured out how to introduce a budget, he's managed to double the deficit. That's right. The deficit is going to be twice as big under Mark Carney as it was under Justin Trudeau. So despite the big show, he's not only done nothing, he's made it worse. On crime, he made a big show about how he was going to address the Liberal crime crisis. Well, what has he done? He has not changed a single Liberal law. He has done nothing. It has been a show about nothing in Mr. Carney's government, but unfortunately it has been a horror show in our communities. Stories of little children being viciously and appallingly assaulted in their own homes by burglars who are out on release. Another horrific tragedy today that we just learned about, where innocent First Nations are the victims. And a horrendous case of a father losing his life coming to the defense of his children who witnessed his death. These are the stories that Mark Carney's Liberals have made more common through their catch-and-release criminal justice system. Even Liberal mayors are turning on the Carney government and saying, what the hell is taking you so long? Our streets are being overtaken by gangsters and criminals. And Mark Carney has put on a big show about nothing. He has done absolutely nothing. His minister even attacked me for saying that people should be allowed to defend themselves in their homes. He said that it isn't the Wild West. I'm sorry, but unfortunately, after 10 years of Liberal laws, it is the Wild West out there. People are feeling afraid. Seniors afraid to go outside. Parents afraid to let their children play alone. Canadians afraid their car might be stolen. Drugs are killing a record number of our people, and Mark Carney has put on a big show about nothing. Immigration. Mr. Carney put on a big show that he was going to address Liberal immigration. What has he done? He's kept Justin Trudeau's numbers. He is bringing in a record number of temporary foreign workers to take the jobs of Canadians. And yesterday, he made an appalling comment. He was asked about my proposal to get rid of the temporary foreign worker program, and what did he say? He said, oh, he's talked to business lobbyists, corporate lobbyists, and they assure him they would like to continue to bring in low-wage labor from poor countries. Of course they would, Mr. Carney. Of course they want your corporate lobbyist friends and your other elites want to stuff their pockets by shutting hardworking Canadians out of jobs and giving those jobs to temporary foreign workers. You are not supposed to be working for corporate lobbyists. You are supposed to be working for Canadian workers. And that is why we will be pushing extra hard this fall, to put an end to the temporary foreign worker program so we have Canadian jobs for Canadian workers. And we want those Canadian workers to be able to drive to work in the car of their choice. So we will fight to put an end to Mark Carney's proposed ban on gas, trucks, and cars. And then there's been the Seinfeld show, the big show he's done on trade, tariffs, and Trump. He said elbows up. His elbows have gone missing. He said he'd have a deal by July 21st, whereas September, there's still no deal. He said he'd handle Trump, that he would drop the gloves. And yet Mr. Trump has been getting everything he wants from this Prime Minister. And it's now clear why Donald Trump wanted Mark Carney. Mark Carney backs down and gives him everything he wants. Mark Carney is losing abroad, and Canadians are paying the price at home. But worse than the tariffs is Mark Carney's own penalties on Canadian industry. Since he took office 5 months ago, Canada has lost a net $63 billion, most of it leaving to the United States, to create American jobs at our expense. And this brings me to the next show, the Seinfeld show, about projects. Remember, he was going to build a record, we were going to build at record speeds, at speeds we couldn't even imagine. 5 months have gone by, and what has gotten built? Not one shovel in the ground on a national project. Not one permit granted. In fact, 5 months in, Mark Carney can't even name a project that he'd one day like to consider building. But he's got lots of news coverage about setting up an office. He set up an office that will one day hire people, bureaucrats, who will one day receive applications for projects they might one day consider approving to one day begin construction. Maybe. And then on housing. By the way, that's all happening while Canadian pipeline companies are building pipelines in America. creating jobs and energy opportunities for American workers that they say, these companies, they cannot build here in Canada. And on housing, Mr. Carney said he was going to build these prefabricated modular homes using a brand new government department. 5 months in, how many homes has this government department built? You guessed it, nothing. Because the department, this new bureau, still doesn't even exist. He can't even set up a new bureaucracy in 5 months, let alone build a new house. So our young people are without homes, our construction workers without jobs, and our country in the worst housing crisis ever. That is the consequence of Mark Carney's Seinfeld summer, a big show about nothing. Conservatives want enough of the show business, and let's get down to real business. Our fall session is going to focus on very clear, simple priorities. Stronger take-home pay by cutting government spending, taxes, and inflation. Secure streets by locking up the criminals that Liberals have let go free. Solid borders by slamming the brakes on Liberal immigration. And a self-reliant country by passing the Canadian Sovereignty Act, a bill we encourage the government to take from us and put in place. It is a bill that will make this the fastest place on earth to get a permit for a mine, a pipeline, an LNG plant, a nuclear facility, a port expansion. It will open our country for business. It will axe the capital gains tax when you reinvest money in Canada. Let's bring those hundreds of billions of dollars of investment Liberals expelled back to Canada and unlock an incredible boom that will make us strong, self-reliant, and secure in a country where people can pursue their dreams and get things done. The goals are very simple. We don't need a fancy show. We need to bring costs down. We need to slam the brakes on immigration, lock up criminals, get shovels in the ground, and paychecks in pockets. Those are our clear priorities, and that's something. Thank you.
We'll now proceed to questions. Please state your name and outlet.
David Lau with CBC News. Mr. Poilievre, how do you think the government should balance austerity and investment?
Well, thank you for your question. I don't accept the premise that government spending is going to be an investment. What Mark Carney has proven is that all of his extra spending has gone to operating costs like bureaucracy. He's boosted the size of the bureaucracy by 6%. The consultants by 37%. He's putting more money into foreign aid that ships our money out of Canada. He's giving more money to corporate welfare. He's wasting money on handouts to phony refugee claims. That's not an investment. That's money down the drain. We need to cut bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, handouts to phony and fraudulent refugees. We need to bring in a dollar-for-dollar law that requires the government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending they bring in. That's how single mothers, small businesses, and seniors balance their budgets. So far, we've got from Mark Carney is radically higher spending. He's not only increasing spending over Trudeau's numbers, he's increasing it at an increasing rate. Remember, Justin Trudeau had pledged a deficit of about $42 billion for this fiscal year. Mark Carney, without even introducing a budget, might be as much as 100% above that. So nobody should be talking about Mark Carney's austerity. Everyone should be talking about his hypocrisy. He's doing exactly the opposite of what he said he would do. Yes.
Thank you. Second question.
Yes, Mr. Poilievre, David Menzies with Rebel News.
Yes, David.
Mr. Poilievre, literally as we are speaking right now, just a little bit north of this hotel in Vaughan, a funeral is taking place for Abdul Aleem Faruqi. As you know, this is the 46-year-old father who paid the ultimate price in defending his family against home invaders. And yet yesterday, York Regional Police Chief Jim McSween, he held a news conference and he said a couple of things. One is that he wants citizens to comply during a home invasion and wait for police to arrive. He also said, quote, not to take matters into their own hands, end quote. It almost seems as though Chief McSween wants law-abiding citizens to be compliant victims. And of course, last week, in response to your comments about strengthening self-defense laws, the Justice Minister, Sean Fraser, stated on X, quote, this isn't the Wild West, it's Canada. Canadians deserve real solutions that make us safe, not slogans that inspire fear and chaos for Pierre's political survival, end quote. My question, Mr. Poilievre, is what is your response to the comments made by Chief McSween and Justice Minister Fraser?
Well, let's start with Sean Fraser's comments. He says it's not the Wild West out there. Oh, really? Maybe he should talk to Mr. Faruqi's family, this courageous and heroic man who came to the defense of his children, children who will be traumatized for the rest of their life by watching their father mercilessly killed by a criminal who should be in the slammer. And I hope that those children will, as much as their lives are going to be much more difficult, I hope that as they get older, they understand the true hero that their father was. I'm sure he didn't want to be defending his family. He wanted to be sleeping in bed like the rest of us, but he did it because of the instinct of a father to stand and fight and defend his home and his family from an invader. He shouldn't have had to, but liberal laws turned criminals free on our streets again and again and again. The Liberals have known this for years. Police officers, mayors, community groups have been crying out for an end to the Liberal catch-and-release criminal justice system. And yet Mark Carney, who's been Prime Minister for 5 months now, decided to go on vacation before ever reversing those laws, and made an even bigger mistake in appointing Sean Fraser as his Justice Minister, a man who first ruined the immigration system as the Immigration Minister under Trudeau, and then ruined the housing market as the Housing Minister. And to give him a third chance to screw something up, Carney has put Sean Fraser in charge of this. It's no wonder crime is raging out of control. My message is that we want to end the Wild West, lock up the criminals and throw away the key. 3 strikes, you're out. You 3 violent offenses, you go to jail and you never get out. And I'll add this. People have a right to defend their home. Your home is your castle. Someone comes into your house and threatens your family, you should have the right to take force against them to defend your family. That's what Conservatives propose with the Stand on Guard Act, and that is what we will fight for in this fall session.
Thank you. Third question.
Mr. Poilievre, Chris Gargas, I'm a freelance cameraman with CTV National News. They sent me a couple of questions. I think you've answered the first one, actually, but if you'd bear with me and just let me read
Please.
it anyway. Prime Minister Carney is promising a budget of investments and austerity. Would you like to see him go further than the target they have set of 15% of savings over 3 years?
So he's not doing either, and he's doing neither investment nor austerity. What he's doing is even more bureaucracy and spending. As I said, it's all a show. There's talks of targets of one day he might find savings somewhere, but since he took office, let's judge him by his actions. He brought in a spending bill in the spring that ballooned the government by 8%, that expanded the bureaucracy by 6%, that expanded spending on consultants by 37%, that boosted foreign aid, handouts to corporations, and more giveaways to phony refugee claims. Mark Carney is even more expensive than Justin Trudeau, something we would have thought unimaginable. So forget what Mark Carney says, forget what letters he sends to other politicians, forget what comments he makes in press conferences, focus on what he's actually done, which is to make the government more expensive and our deficit twice as big. Conservatives believe in truly slashing the bureaucracy, the consultants, the foreign aid, the handouts to big corporations and phony refugees. Let's bring down the cost of government so we can bring down taxes and increase take-home pay for our people.
Okay, as a follow-up, if you were Prime Minister, how would you approach this spending review? Would you approach including job cuts and not just attrition?
We have too many, after a decade of lavish liberal spending, we have too big a bureaucracy. We need fewer bureaucrats. That means reversing these massive spending increases that Mr. Carney has brought in. Then we need to bring in a hard cap on spending, where we find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending. So the government can't just pass the cost on in higher taxes, inflation, and debt. So the answer to your question is yes, we need less bureaucracy and more results. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
Mr. Poilievre, are you concerned about any programs that the government would cut in the future?
You know, the mess we're in today, the reason why we have the worst youth employment numbers in 3 decades, the worst housing and food price inflation, the reason that there are 2 million people lined up at food banks is that the government is too fat. It's very simple. The government is rich and the people are poor. We need to make the people rich by getting the government off their backs. Actually, I'd put it this way. Right now, the government has become a big fat man, and the private sector is a skinny man carrying that fat man up an increasingly steep hill. And that skinnier man is about to collapse under the weight of the gargantuan Carney Liberal government. It's time to put that government on a diet. And it's time to start worrying about the feeding and care of the hardworking people who are carrying the government on their back.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Thank you very much.
Oral questions.
Sorry, gang, just one moment. We'll get this lined up. So this piece that we're going to show now, this is an eye-opener for a lot of people. Like, I knew this was going on, but a very short, well-illustrated video that maybe is going to open some people's eyes. I don't know. Most of the people that watch this, that find my channel, know what's going on anyhow, but not exactly what's going on, but knows that something's up. Like, Carney didn't just land in Canada. This is someone's plan. Someone much bigger and more powerful than Mark Carney that's able to get a weasel like that elected as Prime Minister in Canada. Like, it's very, well, it's pure evil the way I see it. Anyhow,
this is Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. 3 nations spread across 3 different continents. But despite the distance, one alarming truth connects them all. They are collapsing in exactly the same way. And now, the symptoms are impossible to ignore. Let's begin where the cracks are turning into a full-blown collapse. Canada. In Canada today, the average family can't afford a home in their own country. Home ownership has crashed 31% in a single generation. Compounding this issue, foreign buyers now hold a significant stake in the Canadian property market, owning up to 13% of it, more than at any point in history. But Canada isn't alone. In Britain, the foundation of the middle class has been gutted, manufacturing jobs gone, down 46% since 1990. And what did families get in return? The highest tax burden since World War II, all while public services fell apart. But this isn't just a British problem. Across the world, Australia is living the same nightmare, only deeper. There, a quiet takeover is underway. Foreign corporations now control 80% of the country's critical resources. And the dream of home ownership? Dead on arrival. Housing prices have soared by 500%, while wages crawled just 80%. Young Australians are being priced out of their future in their own country. And this pattern across continents, across governments, is no accident. This isn't just failure. It's not bad luck. It's called managed decline, and it's happening by design. And if you're watching this thinking it can't happen here, you need to pay attention, because these 3 nations are the test cases for what's already occurring throughout the Western world. What you're about to learn in this video will completely change how you understand what's happening to these once powerful nations and why everyone should be deeply concerned about what comes next. The evidence is hiding in plain sight. Government documents, insider testimonies, and statistical patterns reveal a blueprint that's been quietly unfolding for decades. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Most people have no idea that the collapse of these three nations follows a familiar historical pattern. Every empire throughout history has fallen in a similar way, from the inside out. Take ancient Rome. Most think it fell to barbarian invasions, but Rome's real decline began internally, through economic inequality that mirror what's happening across Canada, the UK, and Australia right now. By the 2nd century AD, as Rome's expansion slowed, the wealthy elite created massive estates worked by imported labor. This destroyed local Roman farmers, the backbone of the Republic, who were crushed by debt and displacement. Sound familiar? It should. It's the exact same pattern unfolding today. When Roman reformers tried addressing these inequalities, they were eliminated. The elites chose to get rid of reformers rather than give up their power. A key point to remember as we look at what's happening in these modern nations. Just as Rome faced demographic collapse in its final years, these three nations are experiencing unprecedented population shifts. Despite Canada importing over 480,000 migrants in 2024 alone, its fertility rate has plummeted to just 1.48 children per woman, far below the replacement level. The UK's fertility rate has crashed to 1.44, while Australia's sits at 1.5. These countries aren't growing naturally, they're being artificially repopulated while their middle classes vanish, exactly as Rome's did before its fall. Managed decline might sound like boring corporate jargon, but it represents one of the most dangerous concepts in modern governance. Originally a business term for companies beyond saving, it evolved into a strategy where maintaining appearances takes priority over actual solutions. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's documented policy. The concept emerged during the 1980s in Britain when Margaret Thatcher's government advised that struggling industrial cities should be left to manage decline, controlling the collapse rather than preventing it. But what's truly shocking? This localized strategy has now been scaled up to the national level across Canada, the UK, and Australia, and the evidence isn't hidden. It's being announced openly. Don't believe it? Just look at the official messaging coming out of these governments. Their infamous "you'll own nothing and be happy" rhetoric wasn't just a meme, it's becoming the reality for millions. In Australia, government reports warn of a generation of forever renters as home ownership slips out of reach for younger Australians. In Canada, nearly a third of people under 40 now say they expect to rent for life, according to recent surveys. And in the UK, a 2025 policy paper declared that the era of mass homeownership is over, signaling a long-term shift away from traditional property ownership. If this is your first time hearing about managed decline, prepare for a rude awakening, because once you understand how it works, you'll start seeing it everywhere. And nowhere is it more obvious than what's happening to Canada right now. Canada presents itself as a progressive, independent nation. The reality? It's being transformed back into a resource colony before our very eyes. Here's the playbook being implemented with frightening precision. First, domestic production gets strangled. Since 2009, business investment per worker in Canada has fallen by 20%, according to Statistics Canada, part of a broader trend tied to weaker market competition. Meanwhile, productivity has stagnated. Canada also recorded only 1.1% growth in real GDP per capita between 2014 and 2024, making it the second worst performer among 38 high-income countries. Second, the market gets flooded with new consumers. Canada now has the highest population growth in the G7, with 98% coming from immigration. This creates artificial GDP growth on paper while masking collapsing living standards. Meanwhile, the housing market has detached completely from economic reality. The average Toronto home now costs 11 times the median household income, more than double what financial experts consider remotely sustainable. Young Canadians aren't just unable to buy homes. They're spending up to 60% of their income on rent alone. The numbers are staggering. In March 2025, the average home price in Toronto hit $1.4 million, while Vancouver topped $1.7 million. Meanwhile, the median annual income in these cities hovers around $100,000. The math simply doesn't work anymore. And who's buying these properties? Foreign investors purchased tens of thousands of Canadian homes in recent years, with many left empty as pure investment vehicles. In fact, things got so bad that the federal government extended its foreign buyer ban to 2027. Statistics Canada data shows that non-residents owned about 7% of condos in British Columbia and 5.6% in Ontario. Clear evidence that investment demand has distorted housing supply. But wait, you might be thinking, isn't this just normal economic evolution? Think again. Most Canadians never even noticed when, back in 2015, former Prime Minister Stephen Harper publicly dismissed the middle-class prosperity platform as outdated. At the time, it sounded like political posturing. But in hindsight, it reads more like a warning, because what followed was a slow, calculated dismantling of the economic foundations that once upheld middle-class life in Canada. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. Canadian policymakers aren't failing to solve these problems. They're just ignoring the inevitable. When asked what happens if Canada's housing bubble finally bursts, analysts warned that it could trigger a financial crisis with ripple effects far beyond real estate. As Jacobin notes, Canada's housing market has become a tinderbox propped up by speculation, lax regulation, and blind faith in endless appreciation. If the bubble pops, it won't be a surprise. It'll be a disaster foretold. That's right, the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. If you think Canada's managed decline is shocking, just wait until you see what they've done to Britain. It's the same blueprint, just a more advanced stage. And what you're about to discover will make you question everything you thought you knew about modern economics. The United Kingdom, once the workshop of the world and birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, is now experiencing the fastest deindustrialization of any developed nation.
Whoops. All right, gang. So I've been investigating, researching this stuff for a bit of the summer, especially the last month. Earlier in the summer, I just thought it was the PRC, but I don't think that's the case. I think the powers that be control the PRC. They control the Russians. They control what used to be Western democracy. I think they've got their hands dug in real deep, and it's scary to think, like, there really is no need of having so many people. Until they get rid of everybody, I don't know what they're going to do then. They're all a bunch of sociopaths that are doing this, but they are pulling off their plan. I still have some hope that we can turn it around, but I don't know. All the people that got vaccines, they might be rewired. And I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I'm just somebody that's been paying an awful lot of attention, and everybody chalks it up when, the first thing that people say when they say Chrystia Freeland, they're like, oh, she's stupid, she's incompetent. She's a very capable psychopath. Looks right through it, lies right through it, and people are always like, what's wrong with her? There's from her perspective, there's nothing wrong. She's doing exactly what her bosses want. I don't think that she is somebody that's actually making decisions at all. They're doing what they're told. All of them that are on the left side of it. And again, when I started doing this channel, which is coming on 2 years now, I started the second week of Parliament two years ago. And the last time I had voted before, I voted in the 2015 election and voted Liberal. It's not like I came in as a conservative. I'm still not. I don't trust any of these people. I have a little bit more hope for the Conservatives. I'm hoping that Pierre Poilievre is a man of his word. And recently what he's shown is very convincing. Like, I'll definitely vote for him. I voted for our Nova Scotian premier here last election, which was in November. Wish I hadn't done that. Like, not that not voting is a better option, but well, he's misrepresented who he is. And that's going on all over the place. Like, I don't think that all the politicians are corrupt necessarily, but it's a dirty, dirty business. It just is. Anyhow, gang, just wanted to do a test run to see how this would work. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Feel free to think. Welcome. IR, what's up? Good to see you. If I'm missing anybody, Ken Flanders' brother, what's shaking? Yeah, anyway, guys, I'm going to run. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Rhonda Kirk, you're the best. Thank you so much. That's it. We'll be back. We're definitely back on the 15th. I should place that now. Put that in. But I'll be doing other shows because I'm going to make tweaks to this. I'm going to have the best live broadcast of Question Period that's going to be online. I assure you. Like, already have a great community to start with. I'm better at some things. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to polish that up and just have a really fun, engaging show for Question Period. Anyhow, that's it, guys. Aaron, Canadian Loonies, smash the like, hit subscribe, get notified for the live shows. We're going to head out. Let's head out on this. Let's go out on this piece.
Questions orales, oral questions.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
WTF.
Here, here.
Hey, everyone, quiet down. There's a bulletin on TV.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
The one we call Canadian. Canadians.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada? There will always be a Canada. All right, elbows up. Elbows up.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron right here, Canadian Looney. We have issues in Canada, right? Unless you're completely head in the sand.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic
For you,
mirror.
Kirk.
Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, tell me do.
This is for
Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane.
Thank you,
I see
Ken.
Bert and Nicole, and I see you
I
too.
see Ken
I hope to see you
Flanders.
tomorrow, right here in Romper Room. Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock.
Very nice, Ken. Appreciate
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.